But let's get back into our conversation. And let's talk about the NDC Manifesto launch. It happened in Winneba on Saturday. And, well, Akomeah, now we know what the NDC has in store for the country. We know what their plan is to move Ghana forward if they win the election. Tell me, what was the best part of it for you?
Well, the parts that are also reflected in the NPP manifesto, those parts are parts that I can say that I like. A lot of the parts that are also not in the NPP manifesto, many of them are just slogans and intentions without any effort to show us in concrete terms how they will be achieved. You take this famous or infamous 24-hour economy that they talk about. I still don't understand what it means, because to get businesses running on 24 hours should be the outcome of policies. It shouldn't be the policy itself. I mean, Joy FM, you run 24 hours. The main reason why you do that is because there's demand for your services for 24 hours. If there's no demand for your services, you close at a certain time, because then you've been incurring costs. So it is the culmination of various positive measures to stimulate demand, to stimulate the economy. That itself, the 24-hour itself, cannot be a policy. It can only be the outcome. So I don't understand it. And you see, you agree with me that if there's no demand, it would determine the hours that business is open. I've shown you by your own operation here at Joy FM. There are businesses that will close at 6 p.m. There are businesses that will close at 8 or 9. There's a pharmacy closer to my house. They close at 8 p.m. There's a pharmacy further down the road. They close at 10, 11 p.m. because the demand situation is different for the two pharmacies. The one that is further from my house but is at the main junction, what they call the managed junction. And there's a lot of people doing business at that junction at all times, because it's a junction and there's a trotro station, there's a taxi station, there's a Okada station. There's always to and fro. So the businesses that operate at that junction, they close very late because of the demand situation. The businesses that operate further down the road, they close early because of the same demand situation. And these are just half a kilometer apart. So you cannot decree a 24-hour operation. It's the demand that is important. And when you look at what they are proposing, you don't see any concrete measures that will stimulate demand. Look at what the NPP has proposed. The macro stability, and we've shown how we would achieve that macro stability. And I can tell you, businesses cannot thrive when there's instability in the macro situation. So the macro stability is extremely key in getting the economy to move, in getting demand to grow, in getting people employed, and getting businesses to operate for longer hours. The policy on Made in Ghana, Buy Made in Ghana, which we are going to write into law, it's going to stimulate demand for Made in Ghana and stimulate longer business operating hours. The tax reforms, the flat tax rate, the simplified VAT rate, and we've shown how we're going to do it. Is going to stimulate demand is going to stimulate businesses. The fiscal law that we are going to change it, that the deficit should not be more than 105% of the current year's tax projection, and the tax projection is made in the budget cycle, that is in December or November, and it could be wrong, and we base our deficit spending on that. Akomeah is saying that we would amend it and fix the deficit to the previous year's tax revenue, which is known, so that the room for miscalculation will be gone. And so it will limit our propensity to spend more than we earn, which has been a major problem that we know. This offloading of about 3% of GDP to the private sector to engage in commercially viable services, including infrastructure, that will reduce government expenditure and help us to stay within the fiscal bounds and help us to stabilize the economy. It will also lead to an expansion in opportunities for the private sector that is going to stimulate demand in construction, that is going to stimulate business operating hours, that's going to stimulate employment and so on. The aggressive import substitution that Akomeah is going to embark on, the cheaper power, because cost of business, a lot of it depends on the cost of power. Akomeah is going to bring in about a third of our electricity or power demand is going to be provided for by solar. And solar is cheaper than even water. I mean, the mix of power that we have today is water and hydro, which is water, and the thermals. The hydro is about 6 American cents an hour. The thermals are about 15 cents an hour. It makes the cost of electricity very high. Solar is even much cheaper than, and if you have 2,000 megawatts over 4 years of our power supply coming from solar, that shows you the average cost of power will come down, and that will stimulate business. The increase in police numbers, which we've already seen, is ongoing, is going to enhance security and all of that. So when you look at stimulating business, stabilizing the economy, you look at what the NDC, the NPP intends to do, you can see that it's going to generate more business operating hours than what the NDC is proposing. And my last point on this is that, what is the credibility? The question that every Ghanaian should ask themselves is that, what is the credibility of John Mahama? Because many of the things that he's saying today, he told us the same things in 2012 when he became the president after the unfortunate loss of the sitting president. And when he was campaigning, you look at the presidential debates, the one that we had in Accra, the one that we had in Tamale. Many of the things that he's saying today, that he says is that's what's going to bring, that's 24 hours. He told us the same things, and if we have time, I'll go through them one by one. He told us the same things in 2012. We gave him the opportunity. He had the best opportunity of any first-time president in this Fourth Republic. Every first-time president usually got 4 years. And then based on the assessment of the work they did, they were given another 4 years. John Mahama is the only one who got longer time than any other president. He got 4.5 years. And he's the only president whose mandate was not renewed. So he didn't perform on his promises, on the projections he had given to Ghanaians in 2012, and the things that he said. He didn't perform. He's now saying the same thing. So where is the credibility? In Akan, we say that aye boafo ene etwane so ana aye bida ne etwane so. It's your record that determines the further responsibility that's given to you. Your record is poor. Your record is dismal. Your record is and if let me just take 2 seconds to read one review of ISA reported on Mind
Journal. To be the last point, so that Alhassan can.
In your time, these things that the difficulties that we are going through today, which we know that a large part of it is external, and the NDC admits that, including John Mahama himself, when they go abroad, but when they come into the country, they pretend that there's nothing external about it. It's all the fault of Akufo-Addo. This day they say it's the fault of Bawumia. But your economy, all the things that they blame, they tell Ghanaians are wrong today, and they forget about the external factor. All those things also could be applied to the regime of John Mahama. What is it? The economy? He took us to the IMF. Corruption? Now they say family and friends. The family and friends term, it was coined as a term to describe the John Mahama government. What is it? I hear Suhuyini say something about, he said Akufo-Addo something. I've forgotten exactly what he said, but he was saying Akufo-Addo doesn't listen to Ghanaians and so on. John Mahama was able to look Ghanaians in the eye and tell them that you cannot talk about his presidency unless you have also been president. What is more dismissive? What is more disrespectful than this? So you have to be a bit careful in what you. And I was going to read to you, because you don't have to. I was going to read to you an ISA report in 2014 under John Mahama's watch. The Ghanaian currency was, according to Bloomberg, the worst currency in the world. So all these difficulties that you are talking about today, John Mahama's regime had the same difficulties. That is why he was thrown out. So what is the alternative? The alternative cannot be John Mahama, who had been given a chance and given the longest time of any first-time president and failed. He cannot be the alternative.
Okay. So let me record straight before Mr. Suhuyini comes in. So at the time John Mahama left office, the debt stock was 122 billion Ghana cedis. Today, the debt stock is about 742 billion Ghana cedis. Now, for parity, what we can do is convert these into the dollar amounts using the exchange rates at the time. So at the time John Mahama left office, the exchange rate was $1 to 4.6 cedis, which meant that the debt stock at the time was 26.5 billion US dollars.
Was it 4.6?
4.6 as of December 2016.
Okay.
4.6%, 4.6
Cedis to
Ghana
a dollar.
cedis to a dollar as of December, which means that the debt stock was 26.5 billion US dollars. Today, the debt stock is 742 billion Ghana cedis, and the exchange rate is somewhere around 15.5 cedis to a dollar, which means that the dollar debt stock is 47.88 billion US dollars. So
what I want you to do in relation to this,
so
if
that
it's possible.
that means, forgive me, so that means we've there has been an
That means there's an
addition of-
inaccuracy in what you said. But can we
One
proceed
second.
so that
Okay,
you don't take all the time,
Just a second.
churning out more inaccurate
No, just one
information.
second. What I
Can
like
we
to
proceed?
is move
Can
away
we?
from this CD
No,
conversion.
no,
Just one second. And get them to give you the actual borrowings.
You know,
Just move away from this CD conversion.
it's an
And let's do
interesting
that.
it's an interesting request coming from Nana Akomeah, because you see, I recall the work Honorable Seth Tekpe had to do to convince the New Patriotic Party then, when he was finance minister, that there was a need to separate the actual borrowing, and even after doing that, to consider the CD depreciation in determining the actual figures that have been borrowed by the government. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and Nana Nko didn't buy that. So it's a very interesting request for him to make today. But what has been established by the basic check you have done is that it is not correct that the NDC
Let them
borrowed
bring the actual borrowing
sum
so
that
we
he
can
gave,
see.
and they only borrowed 13 billion US dollars. In fact, the 13 billion is from the Eurobond alone. And I'm telling you, I mean, the good book,
your
the
borrowings
good
is
book,
from
the
where?
good book, the good book itself says it, that to whom much is given, much is expected. And I believe that if President Mahama got 13 billion, given the record of strategic infrastructure transformation that he rolled out, if he had 13 billion to spend under his administration, trust me,
How
we would
much did he get?
not have been at the IMF. Less than 3 billion from the Eurobond
No,
alone.
how much did he get
and
in
it was
total
also
borrowings?
even deliberate. I mean, I'm not going to waste time on that, but I just
I'll get
also
that check.
in the spirit of setting the record straight, say that look, when Nana Akomeah claims that we are telling Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to go and debate market women, it is not true. It is actually Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia who told John Mahama to go and debate the market women in 2016 when, the NDC called for a debate. It was Dr. Mahmoud who told John Mahama to go and debate market women and workers.
So what have you
So
told
it is
him?
not true
What have you
that
told
we
him
are
today?
saying that he should do it.
So what are you telling him today?
Maybe it is possible some people are reminding him of what he said. We are not telling. That is not telling him. That is reminding him of what he said to the president at the time.
And so why are you not
Again,
debating
can I
No,
focus?
we're having a
Again,
discussion. Why are you not debating?
no, you see, you had your time. I didn't interject. And then you see, he talks again about the killings. And in fact, Kojo, it means a lot to me. I have been on this since 2021 because I was more scandalized when I heard the president's victory speech, and he referred to those lives as just a few, and ever since has not even as much expressed sympathy, and expressed condolences to the families that lost their lives. He hasn't apologized to the nation, and this is the first time that has happened in our fourth Republican democracy. And if we do not show our disdain, we will embolden people to begin to think that it is okay to kill people to win elections.
So why
then
don't you
he
point
says,
your criticism to the president? Why is it
no,
pointed
you see,
at the vice president?
in the beginning, my criticism was always with the president because he's commander-in-chief. But when the vice president, has the opportunity after 3 years or so, 4 years after the incident, and he is the chairman of the police council, and he's asked about it, I'll expect him to show some level of, seriousness about the need to resolve that matter. Because, like I said, his answer showed that he is either not serious about his job as the chairman of the police council, or he is insensitive. He doesn't care about the lives that were lost. And Nana Akomeah's defense is that it was done by the military, and I'm shocked.
No, because
you see,
you
please,
brought
Nana,
in the
Nana, can I go on?
police.
Can I
You
go
brought
on?
in the
Nana,
police.
please.
And
I think
why-
that you should let me
please,
have
I
my,
think you should
let me
allow
have my say
Mr.
on this
Suhuyini
matter.
to make his point, please.
My point is that, look, whether done by the military or not, we cannot sit in this studio to establish that. But one thing that we can all agree on is that the police is responsible for internal security. And even for election security, the police is responsible for that. All other security agencies only assist the police in maintaining order at the voting centers. Again, the police in this country is in charge of investigations. And so if a matter like that requires an investigation, and I think it does, it is within the purview of the police service. And as chairman of the police council, I would have expected him to show some seriousness, even if not for the lives that have been lost, but for the responsibility that has been bestowed upon him, as vice president, and by extension as a chairman of the police council. So I just needed to set that record straight. That to dismiss it and say that it was the military that did it does not even solve the problem at all. Again, he says Parliament should have done something about it. He should check the hands out of Parliament. We have consistently asked questions on this matter. There's even a motion of the defense minister, of the interior minister. There's even a motion in Parliament requesting bipartisan investigation on this matter. The minority side have actually put up their list the majority side have never, showed any seriousness towards this. So it is not as if it's not as if we have shirked our responsibility in Parliament as he's seeking to suggest. But let me look at the manifesto.
Forgive me. Let me just put this right, because you keep jumping in on this particular issue. Nana, the question is, why has the president done nothing about it? And your response to that is, why has Parliament not done anything about it? But why has the president not done anything?
I'm saying that the president investigations are going on.
Where? Who's doing this investigation? And why is it that
I know investigations are going on?
By who? Who's looking into it?
By the relevant authorities.
Which one is that?
But you see,
is it the police?
By national security.
National security is looking into this.
But you see,
it's been 4 years.
But that's what I'm saying. That let's assume that they haven't conducted these investigations as we would expect. Parliament has the power to bring the national security minister to Parliament and say, give us the status of these investigations. You have the absolute power.
So does the president. If the president is interested, the president is interested, he has even more ability to get us an update on this.
I think that the point has been made on this.
Anyway, Mr. Suhuyini, please continue.
It is one of the massive failures of this government, and for that alone, because 8 Ghanaian lives are involved, this government does not deserve to continue to be in power. For that alone, because 8 lives have been lost, and it could have been it could have been a relative of any of ours, and for that alone, in other jurisdictions, they can vote a party out of government because of the nonchalance, because of the disinterest that this government have shown as far as the lives of this, the precious lives of these citizens are concerned. Now, he talks about the NDC manifesto launch. Well, he didn't really. He actually went around discussing their very lackluster, manifesto that does not inspire.
Well, you have the floor now. So,
I'm making that point. I'm making that point. But in his submission, he questioned the track record of President Mahama. And if you look at our manifesto, in fact, the opening pages of our manifesto addresses that. It talks about the track record of President Mahama. It talks about the fact that when the NDC was leaving power, the NDC left a debt to GDP ratio of 55.6%.
What did they come to meet?
Today,
please
the debt to GDP ratio is gone above 100.4% before. It is currently come down, but at least not even below 70% as we speak. That is President Mahama's record. The incompetent man that he was painted to be left a lower debt to GDP ratio compared to what the competent economic wizard is, supervising today. He left a stable credit rating of B-. B- that was heavily criticized by the economic wizard, and for which reason the people of Ghana gave them the mandate to improve that credit rating. Kojo, today our credit rating is junk status, and you know that as a fact. The record of President Mahama is that he left a lower budget deficit of about 6.1%. Today we are talking about double digits, budget, deficit. He left a declining inflation rate. We have moved inflation rate since he left office to 54%, and it is currently coming down because clearly government is not even able to spend. The country is bankrupt, and so the purchasing power of people is nothing to write home about.
If I may,
now,
Mr. Suhuyini, just a moment.
Yes.
You've mentioned a lot of macroeconomic indicators and suggested that Mr. Mahama left better ones than what we have today. But let's not forget that Mr. Mahama was still voted out because these numbers were not good enough for the people of Ghana. So if we are now having worse numbers, that doesn't suddenly make his performance good, does it?
It makes it better, though.
No, it's still not good. People voted him out
on
those numbers.
I agree. But I'm saying that at that time, there was no comparison. The only thing you could compare with was the hope that you will get someone who will give you better figures, right? At the time, there was nothing to compare with. What was, the case was these numbers. And people were hopeful that if they voted him out, the one who will come was going to improve the numbers. And so it is important that we paint the picture that the one that we were hoping will improve the numbers have actually made the numbers worse. And somehow it is the same person who has made these numbers worse who wants us to continue with him so that he can upgrade our suffering and upgrade our hardship and upgrade our level of unemployment. And that is why it is important to put these numbers in perspective. Look, President Mahama left a booming industrial and manufacturing sector. He left a construction sector that was growing above 8%. Today, compare to the numbers that we are seeing. Clearly, you cannot say that he is not better than the competition that he has. Indeed, as an alternative, he is better than the situation that we have today. And you see, for me, what was even interesting about all this, Kojo, was the fact that after all of these figures, he was still mindful to ensure that he provided strategic buffers for this country to fall on in difficult times. So, for example, you had the Ghana Infrastructure Fund that was set up under his presidency with seed money of about $270 million just sitting in there so that it could help fund strategic infrastructure in this country. It is the reason why, for example, when you recall Finance Minister Setekpe, popular phrase of smart borrowing, you are able to point to how that led to the construction of Terminal 3, which today has almost paid for itself. How it led to the construction of Ghana Gas, which today has fully paid for itself, and Ghana is getting dividends from it. And many other such strategic investments like the University of Ghana Medical Center, which has almost also paid for itself. Those were the kind of strategic investments that he created the Ghana Infrastructure Fund to, fund, so that we will be able to get value for the money that is borrowed and the taxes that we collect. Apart from the Ghana Infrastructure Fund, he also set up the sinking fund with about $300 million in it, the stabilization fund. And remember how useful those became, especially during COVID, when we had to fall on those ones as our first line of action to solve the problem. Today, Kojo, fathom a situation where Ghana is hit with another crisis. This government have eaten everything and is unable to even pay for the debts that they owe, let alone, save anything for the future. And that is why the NDC in the manifesto is talking about stabilizing the economy first of all, eliminating the draconian taxes that have increased hardships in this country, and also seeking to ensure that, for example, for our students that will be going to tertiary institutions, there will be free admission fees for them, so that we can bring about the manpower development.
We'll talk about that in particular.
Yes. So, like I was saying, I mean, we will ensure that there is free academic fees for students going to the tertiary level of education, and the NDC has proven to be very education centered over the years. We also, for example, have spoken about the 24-hour economy that will throw up more jobs for people, especially the young people who have had the unpleasant burden of witnessing this government increase the unemployment rate from about 8% to 14%. Youth unemployment is actually about 32% under this government. And so the 24-hour economy will ensure that we'll make one job available to 3 people as a result of the shift system that will be run. And Nana Akomeah says that he doesn't understand it. Of course, those who do describe it as a game changer, and I'm talking here about the labor unions. Nobody and Nana Akomeah cannot compare his knowledge and understanding of the job market to the labor unions. And if they describe it as the game changer, I can understand why Nana Akomeah doesn't understand it, because the labor unions who deal with jobs, they understand how this will transform our economy. But the other interesting area that will ensure and guarantee jobs is the big push, which will see the government spending about 10 billion, Ghana cedis, 10 billion US dollars, just to invest in strategic infrastructure. And I already told you about how His Excellency John Dramani Mahama was investing in these strategic, infrastructure that have proven to be able to even generate revenue for government and pay for itself.